Cool. So today is the big moment you've all been waiting for, where we take these apps that we've been putting together and we put them up on the internet so your grandma or whoever can see them. So when we talk about deployment, that's exactly what we're talking about, putting stuff up on the internet so your grandma can see them. Well, or, whoever. Doesn't have to be your grandma. Um, yeah, so we're going to be using a service called Heroku today. So when I worked for Coinbase, which is the world's biggest Bitcoin company, they are deployed on Heroku. And we are actually going to deploy to Heroku as well. So they probably pay an inordinate amount of money to use Heroku, and we're going to do it for free. Not because we have sweet connections, but just because Heroku just lets you do it for free. Let's see. So there are a couple different ways to deploy stuff. Deployment, I mean, it really just means putting something up on the net. You've already done it by pushing stuff to GH pages. Anytime you put something online, that's considered deployment. There are other ways of doing it, like I think I may have shown this like during one of the HTML classes early on, but like this is how back in the day I would deploy stuff to my personal web page is using this thing, and well, bam, now I'm inside my server. Now I could, put stuff on here. Here are all my files and everything. And that's all very nice, but that's kind of annoying, and it takes a while. Heroku makes it a lot easier. It's as simple as just pushing stuff to GitHub. Let's see. There's a lot of stuff in here about sort of talking about deployment and everything, but I don't know, I'd sort of rather kind of just start doing it. One thing I do want to point out is that whenever you create a Rails application, well, and let's start off with a Rails application. So I slacked out a link to this tuner Rails deployment repo. If you haven't already cloned that down, please do so. I'll go ahead and do it up here. And this is like the final version of Tuner. So it incorporates everything, or it should, everything that you learned over the course of the week, and everything that we talked about adding to it. All right, and let's go ahead and get the database and everything set up. So the acronym was DICMIS. What are the 4 steps in that? What's the first one? Drop. Okay, so rake db drop. Oh, damn it, that's right, I'm using QuickTime, so it's going to go slow again. Okay, what's the second one? The K in DICMIS. Create. Yep. Jumping the gun, Lee. All right, what's the third one? What's the third one? You said it. Go ahead and say it again. Oh. I don't believe you. Okay, migrate it is. And then the last one is seed, right? db seed. So the database isn't going to drop if, for one thing, you don't have the blue elephant running, or if, for another thing, you have something connected to the database in another window. So when you get like couldn't drop database, things to watch out for are 1, do you have Rails running somewhere else? 2, do you have pSQL open somewhere? If you have either of those, then you may run into trouble dropping the database.
Why does pSQL shut down? Like, shouldn't it just always be up?
pSQL doesn't shut down. When I say you have pSQL, well, so there's Postgres and there's pSQL.
Postgres, my bad.
Postgres doesn't shut down. As long as you have the blue elephant running, this guy, it's always going to be running.
So
pSQL is what you use to like interface with Postgres.
Okay. But I feel like I had my Postgres up yesterday and that's down.
I don't know. Maybe you quit the blue elephant or something. But you can't have any connections to your database, or else you're not going to be able to drop the database. You can't drop a database to which you are connected. Did that fix it? Star? Cool. All right. So everyone got this thing? Okay, I'm going to take a quick look in P-SQL. You don't have to do this because I'm not actually going to do anything in it. I'm just looking in it. Let's see. Here are my databases. Oh, incidentally, you're going to end up with a boatload of databases over the course of this class, and in fact, you probably already have a whole bunch. I wrote this little function that drops all of my databases except for the important ones. So that would be Postgres, Robert Thomas, and these two template ones. If you're interested, I'll check out the link to that. It's this cleardb function I have here. So if you want it, you can put that in your bash profile, and then that'll drop all of your databases. So you don't have to go through and manually drop every single one. But anyway, so in here we can see that I have two tuner databases. I have tuner development and tuner test. Anytime you create a Rails application, it's going to create these two things for you. When you deploy it, it's going to create one more database. It'll be tuner underscore, anyone know? Production. Production. It'll be tuner underscore production. So production, development, and test. Those are the three different environments of a Rails app. When we say environments are sort of the three different situations in which a Rails app can be run. So far we've pretty much just been working in development. That's where you're going in and you're playing around with code and stuff. But there's also the test environment for when you're running RSpec. Why does RSpec, why does testing get its own database? Any thoughts? Yeah, exactly, because you can mess it up. It uses a separate database because your tests, they create artists, delete artists, whatever, and we don't want that to accidentally erase data from the development database. And that also explains why you have a development database and a production database, because when you're coding this stuff, you're going in and you're creating artists named Billy Ray Cyrus and all sorts of weird stuff. And you probably don't actually want that in production. So when you deploy, it's going to create a whole new database for you. Cool. Any questions so far? Yes?
What's after Margaret?
Dickness. So you have drop, create, migrate, and
Seed.
no, seed. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said seed. If anyone can think of a better acronym or mnemonic or something, let me know. It's done? Okay, cool. I'm so glad that that is my legacy. So we have these three different environments. And what all is different between them is more than just the databases that they use. That's the first one on here. So there's the name of the database, but also a couple other things as well. These, well, so one that you'll see, if I go into Atom, we're actually not even going to be writing any code for the first big part of this class. It's just going to be doing stuff in the command line. If I look in here, you can see I have a development.log. And so when this gets deployed to production, we end up with a what.log? Production.log. Yep. So we have different logs for each one as well. That way we can see what errors were generated while we were writing code and which errors were generated by people actually using the app. There are differences between them. So you know what? Why don't we actually, I'm going to deploy this thing. Well, no, we'll deploy together. We'll do that. We'll start off with that, and then maybe we'll work back into it a little bit. So you should have cloned down this tuner Rails deployment thing. What I'd like you to do now is follow the instructions on this site to install something called the Heroku tool belt. And that's just going to install some command line stuff that we can use to make it really easy to deploy to Heroku. So this is right here. It shouldn't take very long, but I'm just going to budget 5 minutes for you guys to go to the link I slacked out and get this installed. Okay, so let's take 5 minutes to do this. You'll know it works when you do like Heroku help and you get something like this. Or actually, even if you just do which Heroku, and you get anything showing up, then you've done it right. So just go to that link and then just click this download button. If you have any trouble, please let me know. Say what? Oh, I actually don't remember. I think you do have to sign up for a Heroku account to do this. But again, Heroku's free. You shouldn't need to do anything crazy to log in. Say what? So what we're doing is we're downloading a command line app, basically, that lets us interface with Heroku. No. Heroku, it works when you type Heroku -- help, and you get something like this showing up. Once you've downloaded it and installed it, you may need to quit and restart terminal or something in order for the Heroku stuff to show up. Please raise your hand if you're having trouble with it. No, it doesn't download an actual application into your application folder. It just downloads something that you're going to use in the command line. So forget what I said about Heroku -- help. If you just type this and something shows up, then it works. It actually saves right here. So it saves into this system folder in here. It's not anything you would actually go and look at. It's not an application you can just click on and it opens all for you. It's just a series of files probably. Actually, I'm kind of curious. I don't know what it does look like. That's exciting. Oh, you know what it is? That's not it. Oh well, I don't know where it is. Say what? You're not interested anymore? Cool. Who needs more time for it to install? What it says up there. Yep. And if you no, all you do is type in this, and if it gives you back something like this, then it worked.
It doesn't matter which folder.
Nope. Anywhere on your computer. All right, there's some more getting started instructions down here. So if you haven't already followed them, please just scroll down the page a little bit. It's going to ask you to log in and do some other stuff. Actually, really all you need to do is the first step, just the Heroku login. So Heroku login. I'm not going to do it because I'm already logged in.
You know what Heroku means?
Nope. Sounds like it's probably Japanese, but I'm not sure. Say what? Fake Japanese? Oh, okay. Could be. Yeah, just Heroku log in, and then it should give you some prompts down here. Once all that is done, what you should be able to do is go back to this tuner Rails deployment repo right here. Is it logging in? Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff to install. So I'm going to wait until everyone's done just so no one gets behind. Just by a show of hands for whose stuff still installing.
What does it mean by cloud platform as a service?
Yeah, so cloud platform, well, so what is the cloud, I guess is a better question. Does anyone have a good definition for what the cloud is?
It's just a server, right?
I would say it's a bunch of servers.
Okay.
So when people talk about uploading stuff to the cloud, they're talking about uploading stuff to a network of servers. So if you upload something to just one server, that's fine, but if something should happen to that server, then you are sore out of luck. With the cloud, you're uploading stuff to a bunch of servers, where it's sort of distributed across all of the different servers. That way, if one goes down, the other servers can sort of pick up your slack, so you never lose your app or your data. So a cloud platform as a service, well, a cloud platform just means it gives you a way to upload your app to the cloud. And as a service, it just means that's the service. The service is letting you be able to upload your stuff to the cloud.
So it's just like traditional server website like GoDaddy or Postground.
Yeah, except a bit more so. Well, when I say more so, I mean that it's more technical, and it's more sort of, it gives you more control, I would say. With GoDaddy and with those, there are a lot of sort of checks in place to keep you from accidentally screwing something up. With Heroku, they give you much more control. And the easiest way to see that is the fact that the way we're interacting with Heroku is through the command line. Whereas if you use GoDaddy or something else, they're going to give you some nice web interface you can use to like log in and change files and stuff. So Heroku is very much developer central. Uh,
Yeah, it should come like immediately.
Are you sure you use the right email address? Yeah. Well, that's okay. They're all of like, ooh, I might. Well, they're all of like 3 different commands that we're going to use here for Heroku. So Lee, I would say don't worry about it for right now. And you can just sort of play around with someone else's app while it's going up. Okay, so all of you guys, please be in Tuner Rails deployment if you aren't already. And then what you're going to do is Heroku create, and then pick a name for your app. So I'm going to call mine Tuner Robin. Oh, good. If you use underscores, I really prefer underscores, but when I use underscores, I get something like this. Name must start with a letter and can only contain lowercase letters, numbers, and dashes. So there you go. That's what you're limited to. So I'm going to do Tuner Robin. And then you should get something like that. Did anyone not get something like this, where it should say Get Remote Heroku Added? Anyone get anything else? Yeah, what'd you get? Oh, cool. So just pick a different name. Just do Heroku create something else. There are like by now 30,000 different tuner applications on Heroku, so you may have to get a little creative. It's all right up here. Oh well, did you do Heroku login? Did you do that? Okay, so you should be able to just do what we have on the board. Don't do Tuner Robin because it's already been created. Do like Tuner Lee or something.
If you don't specify a name, it'll give you a random one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, actually, this is kind of cool. I don't remember how to destroy a Heroku app. So, yeah, they give you really goofy names. Here, let me demonstrate one. I'm gonna do Heroku create. There. So it gave me Sheltered Island 4549. So if you don't specify a name, it's gonna give you some weird random name, and they're all very like, sort of like hippie, sort of like outdoorsy, travel-y ones. Did you use underscores? Don't use underscores. Notice it says it can only contain letters, numbers, and dashes. Underscores aren't dashes. I did the first time, and then it gave me the exact same error message that you got. So then I did a different one. Okay, cool. So once you've done that, the next step is we're getting ready to deploy. Git push Heroku master. That's it. Now you're deploying. And now you're going to get all of this stuff. This is what it looks like when you deploy a Rails app. And so you can see, well, right now, what is it doing? Yeah, but installing what? What are all these things that it's installing? Gems, yep. So it's installing all these different gems. This is going to take a little while. So while it's doing its thing, any questions so far?
So the reason, how were you able to create as a tuner Robin if there were a lot of people?
Just no one had created Tuner Robin yet.
So does that mean like nobody named Robin ever created on Heroku?
No, it just means that no one's come up with the name Tuner Robin. I mean, whatever you can pick whatever name you want. Like you can do Heroku create, Juan is cool. It doesn't matter what the name is. You just have to pick a name that no one else has yet.
No one else means like within that.
No one else anywhere on Heroku because wait for a second. It's almost done. Okay, cool. Once all this is done, I'm just going to do this even if you aren't caught up yet because you're just writing Heroku open. When you do that, it should open up Chrome or whatever browser you're using, and well, bam, it'll take you to your app. So Juan, the reason why you need to pick a unique name, so I chose Tuner Robin. Like anyone can now go to tunerrobin.com. So tunerrobin.herokuapp.com. It has to be a name that no one else anywhere on Heroku has chosen so far.
So it's like you're creating an account within that herokuapp.com.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like you're registering a domain. I mean, I can't register google.com as a domain because someone's already taking that. I probably could do Tuner Robin. I'll bet no one's taken that yet. I'm not even going to look at that just in case something weird comes up. Yeah, Thomas.
I did git push Heroku master, they will not get the cost.
Okay, you need to be inside your Tuner Rails, inside the Tuner Rails repo. Yeah, inside Tuner Rails deployment. You need to have CD'd into that. You were probably outside of that or in a different folder or something.
I mean, I'm definitely in there now. Maybe I wasn't at first. Push Heroku master. Yeah, git push Heroku master. I'm in sandbox, tuner, Rails, deployment, master.
Anyone else having trouble? Is anyone else not getting Heroku Create? Jordan, what are you getting? Oh, what did it do? This? That's okay. This is your deployed app. Isn't it great? Doesn't really do a whole lot yet. And that's because there's one more step we need to take in order for this to work. So deploying to Heroku, doing git push Heroku create or git push Heroku master, it sort of sets up the Rails app. But once you set up a Rails app, really it just gets you to the point of bundle install, rake db create, and that's where it stops. So what do we need to do after rake db create? Yeah, you need to do migrate. But just doing rake db migrate, that's not going to do anything on here. So what you need to do is Heroku run rake db migrate. And this Heroku run thing, if you put pretty much any regular old bash command after that, it'll run it just fine. I can demonstrate that in a second. Ooh, I don't know what that is.
You don't know what that is?
Say what?
That little thing that popped up.
I think it was hovering over something. I don't know. I've seen it before. I don't know what
I
it
was
is.
just curious. It showed up
Yeah, I don't know what it is. All right, cool. And just to demonstrate, if I do Heroku run, I don't know, I'll do pwd. Cool. So now it tells me that I am inside the /app folder. That wasn't terribly exciting, so I'll do Heroku run ls-a. Oh, fine. I guess I won't. Well, Heroku run ls. I'll do that. Maybe it'll show some stuff. Yeah, cool. So there it is. That's showing you the contents of whatever folder you happen to be in on Heroku's server. So there's the contents of that particular folder on Heroku's server. Okay, cool. So we did Heroku run rake db migrate. If you go back here, it should actually work now. Or something should show up, I think. Cool, and there it is. Excuse me, one thing to note is that it takes a little while for this page to load the first time you do it. That's because of the way Heroku works. So you guys who are in the file uploading class, you probably already know this, but the way Heroku works is that when you deploy an app and then no one uses it for a while, it actually completely erases your server. So it erases your app. That's so Heroku can save on server space. There are millions of Heroku apps, and to keep all of those running, that would take a lot of memory. So when no one looks at your app for, I don't know how long it is, let's say 5 minutes, then Heroku actually erases your server. So if I just refresh right now, then that loads up pretty quick. But if I were to wait for a little while and then try to reload it, it would be churning for probably 10, 15 seconds. What it's doing during those 10, 15 seconds is recreating your app. So it's rebuilding your app. So it wipes it when no one's using it, and then when someone requests it, Heroku's like, oh, well, I better create the app again, and so they do. It does preserve all of your database stuff, but there's some other things that it doesn't preserve. So that's something that you need to watch out for if, well, we'll talk about that maybe at some other point. But yeah, so know that your data is preserved, but that's just why it takes a while for it to start up. All right, we do have seed data in here, so we're not going to run rake db seed. What are we going to run? Yeah, Heroku run rake db seed. Oh, there it is again. Huh. Weird. All right, cool. And now let's just try playing around with it. So try signing up. Notice that, well, don't even notice. Just this email thing, it's not actually going to send you an email, I don't think. So you can, just make up whatever email address you want. Yeah.
Can we just like do the list and radio command line, or if we just put spaces after migrate or migrate C and all that stuff and just run it all?
Yeah, I think so. It may be a little different just because, I mean, like when I tried to do Heroku run ls-a. ls-a is perfectly fine, but now it gives me something like this. So it may be a little bit different just because of Heroku's syntax. Yeah.
I'm just getting welcome to your new app, refer to documentation.
Okay, I'll take a look in just a second. But for right now, go ahead and sign up. And then just play around with it. Try to break something. See what happens. Like try going to artist 8675309. See what happens. Yeah, this is the final version, so everything should work. That said, Thomas, before I get to you, if you do want to change something on the database, what you're going to do is go into your code. So this is important. This is how you change your Heroku apps. Go into your code, and then here I'll do something like, let's put Robin is cool up here. Robin is cool. What you're going to need to do is git add, git commit. So Heroku relies very much on git. Robin is cool. And then git push Heroku master. So it's the exact same way that you would push changes up to GitHub, except instead of doing git push origin master, you're doing git push Heroku master. If you get confused, and you can see it's like rebuilding everything all over again.
You want to throw the same dickness if you're updating the database?
Say what?
The same dickness?
The same dickness? Oh, dickness. Gotcha. Dickness. No, you don't. Nope, this should still work perfectly fine.
If you're updating like your seed data or something.
There we go.
Then
So if you're updating your seed data, then yes, you would need to do rake dbc or Heroku run rake dbc again. But you can see that my change is now online. And if you want, you guys can go to tuner-robin.herokuapp.com too. All of you guys, if this works successfully for you, you all have production level apps that you can now show to everyone. So let's see. If you get a little bit lost with the different commands, there's sort of a cheat sheet down here at the very bottom of the lesson plan that I slacked out earlier, which is the different steps to take to set up Heroku. There's this gem Rails 12 factor thing in here. We haven't done that yet. We'll do that a little bit later on. But for right now, I'd say until 10:45. Well, actually, you know what? Let's turn it into a break. Let's go until 10:50, so that's about 13 minutes, and just play around with it. Try pushing up some changes. Just see what you can do. And then I'll come around and help you guys troubleshoot anything that came up. So again, that's until 10:50. So now the command is Heroku create and then that's the whole point. If you don't specify the thing here, it happens and ours is just like so and here, one thing about renaming. Guys, before I forget, sorry, really quick, if you decide you want to rename your app, it is, let's see, where did I put it on here? All right, you run Heroku apps rename, and then just whatever you want that app to be called. So I'll call mine, I don't know, Tuner Robin Redux or something. That should be it. There we go. Say what?
Did you buy the main name for it?
You could. Yep. And so now if I go to Tuner Robin, it is no longer going to work. But if I go to Tuner Robin Redux, it'll work just fine. Well, it has to start up, but there it is.
So if we don't click this for 60 seconds, it'll probably take the same amount of time that it did.
I actually don't know how long it is. I just sort of pulled 5 minutes out of my head. It might be longer. It probably is longer, but I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But remember, it doesn't actually like delete anything important. Your data is still there.
It just pushes it back with it, or gives it back to get basically.
Yeah, kind of. And then it just sort of rebuilds it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't do Heroku run rate db drop. So you can't do db drop on Heroku.
Oh, that might work. I would say definitely never started that. So sounds like it was my yeah. Yeah. Let me put. I'm gonna put that command up here about the database.
Let's see.
Yeah, we have to use the Heroku domain. Can we just use our own domain and then?
No, you can have it point to your own domain. So if you have like wanascool.com, then you can point it to that. I don't know how to do that. It's a bit more complicated.
Okay. So I guess this is just for testing for development.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Yes, it should. Just 1 second. Guys, if you want to delete your Heroku app and redo it again, then you're going to use this. Heroku, apps, destroy, app, and then the name of app. So you're going to run that. This thing's going to pop up telling you that it's a potentially destructive action, and then it'll just tell you what to do. It'll tell you just type it again, type tuner Robin Redux again. And now when I go up here, it should no longer be there. So if you want to restart, you can do that. And I can use tuner Robin Redux again because that app no longer exists. So now I can just recreate it if I want. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try it when this thing starts up. So if you want to, yeah, I mean, Heroku sort of uses it, but it doesn't push to, it doesn't push to GitHub. No, it's a good question. No, it's a really good question. So if I make a change on here and I want it to go both on GitHub and Heroku, I need to do both git push origin master and git push Heroku master. Just doing git push Heroku master is not going to update GitHub.
So how long does Heroku host our site?
They'll host it forever.
How long until it has to restart itself?
Oh, I really don't know. Like somewhere between 5 and 20 minutes, I would say.
Yeah, 30 minutes is that actually.
Oh, it's 30. Okay, cool. That's longer than I expected.
So that's like that 5 second delay time when you first started out, that coding time.
Mm-hmm.
hobbyist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that expensive. I mean, I would say it's on par with other services, and Heroku's so convenient. Like, if you're looking for something, I would say it's not a bad investment at all.
Yeah, I mean, the Amazon one didn't seem too bad, but
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a trade-off. The Amazon one is probably cheaper in some ways, but it's much more technical. You really need to know what you're doing in order to use Amazon, or at least that's been my experience. And then, like, the instructors, we use DigitalOcean, which is also more flexible than Heroku and cheaper in a lot of ways, but same thing, you sort of have to know what you're doing in order to work with it. Yeah. I wonder if I can do this. I don't think it actually has PSQL on here. So if you make a change to your code, you're gonna do git add and commit, and then just git push Heroku master again. So anytime you make a change, just git push Heroku master. That doesn't update GitHub. So if you wanted to update both GitHub and Heroku, it would be git push origin master and git push Heroku master. Is it working? Yeah, so you only do the miss in dict-miss. You just do Heroku run rake db migrate and Heroku run rake dbc. So looks like pSQL doesn't work, but I think I can do Heroku run Rails console. Yeah, there we go. And now, whoops, that's not it. Now I can do artist.all, and I can see everything in there. It's not a different branch. So we do, so the two things here, git push origin master and git push Heroku master. So it's not a different branch. These are the branches. These are the remotes. So Heroku is a completely different remote. Yep. So whatever you push up to Heroku has no bearing whatsoever on what's on GitHub. It's actually kind of annoying because I'll push stuff up to Heroku and never get and you can push it up to GitHub. You know what? I'll actually update the lesson plan. Hey Nick, is it okay if I just add like the instructions for changing your app? So just git add, git commit. Cool. Oh shit, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Cool. So anyone having any questions or anything? Anything coming up?
how could you make your name pop up? Like you said in our email.
I'm not sure what you mean. Like,
Yeah, when you sign in,
Article. Oh, I'm not signed in. Well, over here where it says like welcome email address, that's just in the code.
Okay.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with Heroku whatsoever. It's just something in the code. Let's see. Sorry? Slash. Mm-hmm. No, it's not actually. Yeah, so let's talk about that really quick actually. This 404 page, where it comes from is in here, this public folder. So if you want to change your 404 page, what you do is you just go in here and you add something like, I don't know, Jen messed up the app. And while we do that, I'm gonna comment out one thing actually, just because I want to demonstrate something else. So then I'm gonna push up my changes. Revoke the app. Wait for this to do its thing. Bless you. Okay, there we go. Open it back up. And now I should get Jen screwed up the app. Yep, there it is. So to change your 404 page, you just go into this public folder and just change 404.html. There's also this thing called the favicon in here, or favicon. So that's what shows up, let's see, like here, this little thing, that's GitHub's favicon. And this is Gmail's favicon. And so if you want to have your own favicon, you can just put it right in there, and then that'll get uploaded along with the rest of your app. All of this stuff is in the public folder.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry about what this robots.txt thing does. Okay, so I want to break the app somehow else. Let's see, what's a way I could do that? I may need to push up one more change. So I'm just trying ways of breaking it right now. You guys totally don't need to do what I'm doing here since I'm just trying to break it. Redirect to @artist. And then, okay, cool. Broke artist controller. The reason I'm going through all this trouble is just to show you that things look a little bit different in deployment. So this Heroku app that we're creating, this is in the production environment now, or the deployment environment, whatever you want to call it. Production environment's more correct. And so when you're in the development environment, I mean, you've all seen those like big red error pages where it says like active record, blah, 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 could not be found, so on and so forth. If we go here, I guess I need to sign up. All right, if I go to like /artists/8675309, there we go. So running this locally, actually, here, I'll run it locally too. Why not? Porque no los dos? So I'm running the exact same app both on Heroku and on my own computer. If I go to /artist/whatever, should get a pretty different error page. Oops. Ugh. Yeah, this is one thing I hate about Devise, is that I need to do this all the time. It works too well. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to the exact same thing. I'm going to /artist/8675309, but this is what I see in development, And this is what I see in production. Two pretty different pages. And so Rails, by default, when you go into production, it stops showing those like error pages, those big red error pages. Instead, it just shows this. Those big red error pages are really intended just for development because your users, when they see this, they're not going to have any idea what's going on. That said, I would say this is like, this page is a lot uglier than this page, but it's more useful because at least this actually tells you what the problem is. This at least actually tells you, could not find an artist with this ID, whereas here, that's all you're left with. This is why that error handling is so important because you get even less feedback when you're in the production environment just to try to make things look a little bit nicer. Any questions? Mm-hmm. No, I mean, looking at this, I have no idea what's going on. I mean, like, just as a human being, I can tell myself, like, yeah, it's probably pretty unlikely that there's an artist with the ID of AC75309. But no, if I this doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell me anything. It tells me that it's Jen's fault, but aside from that, it doesn't say anything else. Yeah, wait.
Just to step, some people are wondering when we push when we deploy by Friday. I think I missed one of the steps. So you log into Heroku. So we go into our Git folder where our app is, our real app that we're deploying. And is the first step Heroku create? And then log in, or do you have to log in first?
You should only, I think you only need to log in once on your computer. You should only need to do Heroku login once. If you like change your password or something, then you'll probably need to log in again. But aside from that, you should only need to do Heroku login, one time.
And then after that, Heroku create.
Yep. And again, all of the steps are written out down here at the bottom of the lesson plan. Except for this part, again, we haven't talked about that yet, but we will. One thing that is kind of cool is that, you may have seen me doing this earlier, is that you can do stuff like the Rails console and everything by doing Heroku run Rails console. And now I'm in the Rails console, so now I can do artist.all and everything, and I'm like actually changing stuff in my app right now. I'm inside my apps database, moving stuff around. And so you can debug the exact same way you would locally by using this thing. I think you can also do, does this work? No, okay, never mind. Any other questions about like just the, yeah, Tyler?
Like you have users that add a bunch of data.
How do you get the data?
You wanted to,
I mean, you could just go in here and just do user.all, which is what I'm going to do right now. I only have one user, so I only get one thing back, but there I am. You could, but that would be a bit more complicated. So I'm not going to go into that. Anything else? I would say the easiest thing would be to like create some sort of an admin view in your app that you can look at that just makes it easy to pull everything down instead of doing everything through the command line.
All the users' favorites will be stored in your app directory.
Yeah, all of the database should be stored in here. Oh, I have no favorites, but if I did, they would be right there. Cool. One of the things that is most useful in Rails, though, is being able to look at your server logs. The way you look at server logs in Heroku, well, there are a couple different ways to do it. If you just do Heroku logs, then this will show you what your logs look like so far. So all of this stuff. This looks a little different from what we're used to. Like this looks familiar, but all of this stuff, I am not used to seeing this stuff in my logs on my computer. But like, let's say it did look familiar. You could also do Heroku logs -t, and this is kind of cool. If you do Heroku logs-t, then it opens the logs again, but this time, whenever you actually do anything on the app, you can see it update over here. So this is just as if the server log was running on your computer. So if you leave this running, you can see whenever anyone goes to your website, which is really pretty cool. Like if someone in, I don't know, Nigeria or whatever is going to your site, you can see all of the feedback right here. It's kind of neat. So that's fine, but again, this is not the way we're used to seeing all of this data. So that's because Heroku is showing the production logs for our app. What we've seen so far are just the development logs. So the development logs, again, are, let's see, in here. This is the stuff that we're much more used to seeing, like begin, insert, into, blah, blah, blah. You can see params and stuff in here. This is what the development log looks like. Yeah, here are some params from when I made something. If you want to be able to see the development logs instead of the production logs, which are significantly harder to read, I think, then you need to install this thing called 12-factor. I'll explain why it's called 12-factor in a second, but for right now, I would like all of you guys to please go into your gem file and add this line, or lines. I'll slack it out. Dang, UXDI, keep it down. I would put it at the bottom. So your gem file should look like this now. Yeah, sure. Sorry, that's tiny. Here, I'm going to go have a trace word. A whole bunch of people you don't recognize. There's some Marriott thing going on over there. Okay, so whenever we change the gem file, what do we need to do next in order for those changes to actually apply? Bundle install, yep. I like to say fundle install, because it's fun.
So the best way to do that is just open a new tab, right? Without doing
To do what?
bundle install.
Yeah. Well, except if you have Rails running, then you do actually need to quit out of Rails in order for it to like see those gems are there. It only reloads the gems whenever you restart your server. All right, cool. Now that I've done that, I should see that gemfile and gemfile.lock were updated. I'm going to push those up to Heroku. Git commit. Added 12-factor. And I'll git push Heroku master. And wait a minute. All right, cool. And so now that that's done, I'm going to do this Heroku logs-t thing again to keep the logs running over here. All right. And now I'm going to go back here and refresh. All right, there we go. So this looks much more like what we're used to, this artist load thing. Really, the only difference is that we get these timestamps in front of everything. If you were to take away these timestamps, it would look exactly like the logs we're used to having when we just mess around on localhost. So this is nice for debugging a production environment app, doing things like this. Any questions about logs? Mm-hmm.
So if this is a real-time application that's built, on the scale, there were hundreds of pages on it, or more.
Mm-hmm.
Would this be running so fast?
Probably, yeah. And so logging gets a little tricky when you have that many users. Usually you do end up with like just a crap ton of logs that you have to look through. But generally they're also not just saved into one big file the way we're doing it here. they'll be saved into, like you might have an artist log, a song log, a user's log, so on and so forth. But no disrespect, you guys probably aren't going to get to that point just yet. Maybe later on.
Well, you could check, like, hey, check out my website, and your friends will be like, I'm checking it out right now. And you go, no,
Yeah, but if it's like, oh yeah, nice. I didn't even think about that. All right, so I'm going to talk about this 12-factor thing just for a minute because it's a pretty useful thing. Right now, all it's doing for us is making those logs show up, but it's going to do some other things for us as well that are going to make this app run much better. Just to talk about where it gets its name, it's from this sort of philosophy of the 12-factor app, which is just sort of a like, it's kind of like how MVC is a philosophy of app design. This 12-factor thing is sort of another philosophy of app design that works nicely with MVC. But that 12 and 12-factor comes from these 12 factors right here that I am not going to go into because, I mean, I don't know, do any of you guys know what port binding is? Because I don't really. Yeah, but if you're interested in how like good servers really run under the hood, then you can take a look at this, 12factor.net. I'll send that out. All right, so unfortunately, when you deploy, you're going to run into a lot of errors usually. Deployment is kind of a tricky process. So we've outlined some of the common pitfalls of deploying right here. The biggest one is not including Rails 12-factor. I would say even before that, the biggest thing is that when you do Rails new, you forget to do the Postgres thing. If you forget that, then it's going to try to use a database called SQLite. It's not going to use Postgres, and fixing that can be a little bit complicated. It's totally doable, but your app is no longer going to run on Heroku. Heroku does not use SQLite. Heroku won't use SQLite. The reason for that is that SQLite saves all of your data like inside your apps folder in the exact same way that you save views inside your app folder. That's fine when you're just on your computer, but remember, Heroku erases stuff pretty frequently when people aren't using your app. So if you try to push up with SQLite, Heroku's going to reject it because Heroku doesn't want to be erasing data that you've created. So you have to remember to do the Rails new -d Postgres or PostgreSQL, whatever it is. You have to remember to do that. If you forget, no worries, let us know, we'll fix it. But I would say that's probably what people run into the most, the error people run into the most in this class when they're deploying to Heroku is forgetting this thing and running into that problem. I don't know, let's find out. I'll go onto my desktop, I'll do Rails new, whatever, the Postgres. Let me try it just with Postgres first. Aha, yep. So it told me exactly what I'm allowed to use here. So you're right, it is PostgreSQL. Cool, so that's one thing. The other thing, which is really easy to fix, is just forgetting to run Heroku run rake db migrate. So remember when you push up, you don't get to do all of dict-miss anymore, you just do the miss. Also, you can't drop your database. So we're used to doing that, being able to do drop, reset, so on and so forth. But you can't do that here. If you really want to, then it's a bit more complicated. You have to actually run this. You have to run this Heroku PG reset database URL thing. So that would be typed in exactly the way it looks. That would be Heroku PG reset database URL, and then you would need to migrate all over again. Yeah, destructive action, because it's saying, well, hey, are you sure you want to completely obliterate your database? Yeah, sure, why not? You probably never want to do this, and so this is something where so far we've been telling you guys like, you know, if you go back and you change a migration file, just make sure you run like rake drop, rake create, blah 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 again. But when you start pushing up to production, it's a lot more complicated to reset your database. So you can't just go back and change an old migration file. Once you start deploying stuff, you can't just go back and change your migration files anymore. You have to create a new migration file that somehow changes what you did before. I can't just go back and do something like, I can't just go back to this migration in here and start changing things. I can't do that because it's going to screw up my app. And I don't want to drop my database because that has all of my data in it. And so if this is a production level app that people are actually using, I'm going to have sensitive stuff in there that I don't want to lose. So that's why it's important once you start deploying to not just change your migration files. You have to do Rails G migration, change user column, whatever. And then actually change it in here whenever that file decides to show up. Any questions about that? I would say that's a really important thing. Not going back and changing your migration files, but instead generating new migration files.
So then would you have to run rate when you migrate on your regular app?
You don't actually need to run it on your regular app. It couldn't hurt, but what you really need to do is once you've done something like this, you need to push back up to Heroku and then run Heroku run break db migrate again. That's going to pull in this most recent migration that you did.
And but is that going to be reflected in the regular portfolio as well? Like in the schema, for example, is that going to be updated here if you're doing it through Heroku?
No, it's not going to be updated here. Maybe not. So, yeah, okay. So I would say that's a good thing to follow. So. Too much fun over there. So you'll do your Rails G migration and column do something, and then break db migrate, and then you'll get add, and you'll get push. Oh, sorry, get commit. Then you'll get push Heroku master, and then you'll do Heroku run rate db migrate. So if you're changing your migrations, I would say those are the steps that you should follow. Any questions about that? Mm-hmm.
I think we didn't DB migrate run all of our migrations, and that's why we had to drop the sequence we
It doesn't actually. So when you do rate db migrate, what it does is it goes in and it looks in your schema for this number right here. And this number is the same, it should match the number at the beginning of the most recent migration you have. So you see how this one ends in 807, and this one is also 807. It does that to see which migrations are new, and then it only runs the migrations after that. So it's reading this, it's looking for a migration ending in 807, it sees it right here, and it's like, all right, I'm only going to run any migrations that come after that. I'm only going to run this one, or if you have more, it'll just run from here on down. The reason it does that is so, again, it doesn't like overwrite any stuff you may already have in your database. Migrations, after you've initially set up your database, migrations are just changing something in your database, hopefully in a non-destructive way, hopefully in a way that doesn't delete data.
I feel like I was getting errors because like users already created, or something is already created if I wasn't dropping it.
So that happens if, that was happening when we were like pulling down all these different tuners because inside here the numbers didn't necessarily match what you had. And so it would try to run like create songs again, and then it would throw an error because you already have songs.
No, I was looking all the different versions.
Yeah, that's not something you're going to run into pretty much outside of this class. Other questions? Cool. So let's see. RakeDB migrate and 12-factor, those are two big things. Then the last thing, so this is also a really important thing. You never want to include sensitive information in your Rails app. So for instance, let's say you had something where you wanted it to like ping your email account or something. You could go in here and just do something like, I don't know, like email equals robertgfthomas@gmail.com, password equals, well, I'm not going to tell you guys. But you could do something like this. The problem with that is that now all your code is up on Heroku. And we can't really vouch for Heroku's security. Like, I think Heroku is pretty secure, but I still don't want to trust anyone else with something as sensitive as this password right here. So instead, what you do when you have sensitive information like this is you use something called an environment variable. I'm just going to touch on this right now. We're not going to use it until we get into APIs and stuff. But basically, an environment variable is a piece of data that's stored in the server's memory. It's not actually stored in a file anywhere. Because it's stored in the server's memory, no one can just go and like read that file and learn everything about you. It's stored in a way that they can't access it. So with Heroku, you want to store stuff in environment variables. The way you would do that is with something like Figaro. So Figaro is a gem that stores environment variables for you. Again, this isn't something we're going to run into until we get into APIs and stuff. But that concept of not putting personal sensitive information into a Git repo is a really important one. Again, those of you who are in the file uploading class, I think Adam talked about how there are hackers who like spend all their time just sort of trawling through GitHub looking for sensitive information that has been put up there. And then when they find it, they, I don't know, hijack your credit card or hijack your server and use it to mine Bitcoin or something else. And so that's a very not good thing. So that's why it's important to not include any sensitive information inside your repo. Any questions about that? Cool. Okay, I have to pee, so why don't we take a break until 11:30?
No, dude, it's virtual currency. It goes up and down. Yeah, my friend was trying to get his mom to investigate. Japanese company disappeared, doesn't see any cop. My feet are always here.